How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I want to go and test out this snowplow thing that's on this IX Wrecker. Yeah, there it is, so I'm going to go and put it through its paces. This is the setup I've got in the end. You do need to keep pretty low suspension on it and smaller tyres. You'll see, I've got a goddamn professional with me, but as I slide the roll back, the plough is raising up slightly, and then as I pull the loaf in more, the front end goes down. So yeah, as usual, goddamn horse of a vehicle. Always of some use, like a fine-tuned weight distribution loaf this time. Yeah, because basically with a plough you've got two settings as up or down. You're not manually like raising and lowering it. So yeah, you got that setting to go down. It's also pretty cool that it angles it like a sort of normal snowplow. That's the reason though, you've got to kind of go for the specific suspension and tyre. You don't specifically need these tyres, just I think these might have been 39-inch in the end. It's just best to go, yeah, if you go too tall basically, the plough just won't go to the floor and you'll bump over everything. So originally, I was on my way on Imandra, going to go to the beach and test it out there, because I remember when I was driving those plain parts across there, that a lot of those rocks were pretty awkward. But on the way, I found this little section, and I'm glad I did, to be honest. This is my first ever go. Yeah, giving it a good old ploughing. Still know what she said. I mean, God, when you're ploughing, that's what she said, free for all gold mine. Yeah, it went pretty well. It's a lot better, the fact that it's on ice and the ground's pretty solid. I don't have any issues like sinking or anything like that. Every now and then you can kind of do that where it bumps up over them. And what you're best off, I found overall, is go into low range, preferably like medium low. I haven't got low on this one, but when you first accelerate, obviously you almost do a little bit of a wheelie, and it's not really an issue for anything. But when you're talking about like things as precise as this, where the plough needs to stay pretty flush to the ground, yeah, you can kind of do a little wheelie and jump over the rocks. And once you miss some rocks further behind the plough, you then start driving over them with your suspension, which then lifts the plough up, and then you let a few more rocks through, and it just kind of gets worse and worse. So you kind of want to get a nice clean run, or if you end up missing a few, you're probably just best off, yeah, reversing. As far as reversing goes as well, you want to try and just reverse it as quickly as possible. If you reverse slow, you'll start to drag some of the rocks kind of back with you and all sorts. If you just hoof it backwards, it kind of jumps over them before it has a chance to start moving them all around. Yeah, eventually I got down to the beach in Imandra, and as you can see, it's not really the plough's fault in this situation. It did start ploughing some of the rocks out of the way, but as soon as there's just like enough resistance on the plough, I pretty instantly start, I mean, yeah, I wasn't so much sinking, I was kind of accelerating, wheel spinning and chewing my way into the floor. So yeah, it's just not really that smooth overall. I mean, again, goddamn professional, it gets over all kinds of rocks. I don't think I've ever got the loaf stuck on a rock. It's gone over all kinds of rocks that even colobs and all sorts get stuck on. So I need to get yourself a loaf. Yeah, I'll go for another go now. As you can see, it'd be a nice place for it, because this place is absolutely nailed with rocks. This is where the guy put his overtime in. Yeah, again though, as soon as you build up a certain amount, it's just digs in. One of the things I did notice as well, again, you can kind of bump over the rocks a little bit, but if you go nice and slow at first and get a few rocks kind of pushed up into the plough, it stays down a lot better. It's like it uses the weight of those rocks a little bit to keep itself forced into the ground. And yeah, you start going. You see there, I'm accelerating too fast. This was my first go on, what do you call it, Black River. It's where I do the suspension test. It was one of the only places I could think that was kind of a road, and it's got, yeah, quite a lot of rocks. It's funny, rocks drive me mad, but when you actually get a plough and have a chance to go and find a bunch of them to move out of the way, you suddenly realise how few places there are where there's abundant. Anyway, obviously there's loads of places on the maps where there's just a couple that are in the awkward spots. As you can see though, once I slow down, yeah, in medium low, diff locks on, and you get a few rocks actually built up in there, so it keeps it nice and low. It was actually doing pretty bloody well, better than I thought at that point. Like, I was hoping this wasn't going to be a complete gimmick, but at the same time I can appreciate it's a pretty hard thing to get even remotely right in a game like this, because the terrain has actual, yeah, terrain physics and deformation and all the rest of it. I mean, that is why it's working a lot better in this situation. You can see there though, that's once I let some rocks go under, my suspension's going over them, and it just makes the whole thing worse. You're best off going back and trying to start again. Yeah, again, on the beach it was a little bit more awkward. One main thing I think that potentially could improve this plough, or at least, yeah, well, overall I think it would be an improvement, is as you've seen, I can kind of make it, set it up or down. If I could click on it, and the same with like the rollback and stuff, if you could manually raise and lower it, it'd give you a little bit more options for fine-tuning it to level with the floor, but you could also have more variety of tyres, possibly even suspension. Even if you're able to manually raise and lower it, you need the suspension to be low enough. Like, it wouldn't really work well on the monster truck suspension, for example, unless they, you know, did a plough that sticks out more so it can go lower. Yeah, as you can see though, when I did a little line there, looking back, it was actually a pretty neat line, and it's took a couple of attempts getting used to more. By now I'm not even squeezing the throttle full, I'm probably barely halfway, so trying to be pretty delicate with it. It's probably one of the few times I actually would have a use for low, which is a gear I very rarely use. And every now and then you see that it kind of bumped up, like it raised the front wheels off the ground. That only happened about twice in the whole time I was messing around doing this. And yeah, overall, the funny thing is, I would say, I wanted to know myself if how this plough works and everything. I've not tried it myself. I swear YouTube does listen to me, because I only mentioned the plough yesterday in a video, and then earlier tonight it recommended a SnowRunner video of someone testing the plough. But I didn't watch it. I wanted to sort of just see what happens. But yeah, it was working well enough that I actually spent a lot longer than I thought messing around with the plough and heading to different maps and testing bits out, because yeah, it wasn't so tedious that I was just completely done with it within 5 minutes. I appreciate to a degree it's not going to be the most useful thing in the world, but I never thought it would be. I at least appreciate that, yeah, it scratches a curiosity itch that I've wondered about, especially that in MudRunner on, I can't remember, there was like a red tractor sort of thing on there that had a snowplow thing on one end of it, and I remember using it a little bit, and again it was like not the most useful thing, but just if you have that in mind and you're in the mood to go, yeah, clear a road like this, I mean, it theoretically is doing the job. I am actually clearing the roads, which is pretty cool. I suppose now in a way it'd be sort of nice if there was, yeah, an area or two on some of the newer maps maybe where they sort of had preferably a fairly flat, clean road, but yeah, cover it in rocks, give us a chance to just clean them out of the way. And when you're zipping through there in like particularly massive trailers, or the trailers that are pretty easy to tip, it can definitely help out. But like I said, for the most part it's a novelty, but a good one. And again, I'm glad it's included. The more the merrier, more things to test out. So next up, I've moved along to here a bit though, where it's not really so much a solid road, it's more of, yeah, a dirt road now. And I have to say, pleasantly surprised for the most part. It just kind of glitches through the mud a little bit, but in a good way. Like, it's only that little hump at the top, and yeah, it's going very nicely. It actually keeps the plough low enough that it digs under the rocks pretty well. And I definitely like the fact that they included putting an angle on the plough. That's something I hadn't even really thought of at this point. I remember the sort of, yeah, the plough thing on the MudRunner tractor. But yeah, it moves them out of the way pretty well. Obviously you can also keep them straight. I think I did that a minute ago and just shoved some boulders along the road and shoved them off the edge of the road. But I quite like the neat little lines it makes after you've gone down doing it this way. Sometimes it takes a bit of revving. You might want, yeah, having high-low is a nice option, because when it gets a little bit bogged down you can stick it in high-low, give it a bit more oomph. But as you look back there, I mean, that was only my first run through there. It's not going to be the quickest thing in the world, obviously. Strictly speaking, it's probably going to be like longer to go and fetch one of these and clear a road than it would be to just put up with the hassle of rocks in the way. But as I said, if you're in the mood for it, which I am every now and then when you just want to go all out on a mission and do everything properly, and yeah, sending one of these along first to clear a road would be pretty cool for something to do. And I actually think, yeah, it's working pretty bloody well on these dirt roads, possibly even better. Even the big rocks, the juicy ones and the meaty ones, they're all gone. I think that's my scale if I remember correctly. Small rocks, medium rocks, juicy rocks and meaty rocks. I was getting a little bit, I was pushing my luck there. I'm kind of pushing them so close to the edge, I think they didn't really have anywhere to go then, so it kind of bumped my plough up and over it. Went back for another attempt, because you never know. The definition of insanity, apparently. Doing the same things over and over and expecting a different result, but you never know. Yeah, again, pretty clean road, I think you'll agree. Just in case, need to plough it a bit more, widen that gap. Again, that was definitely what she said. And yeah, it was honestly going a lot better than I expected. Particularly when I tried it at first, and again, through a combination of not quite having the right tyres. At the minute, yeah, I think I've got the 39-inch, is it the Quasi True Joules or something? The suspension, I think it was like one up from the stock suspension, and it was the firm option rather than the soft. I don't even need to say it. Yeah, and that ended up working out pretty nicely, where the plough was like low enough that it was touching the floor and scraping along pretty well, but it wasn't completely digging in. I think originally I used 39-inch tyres and base suspension, and yeah, it was like when you put the plough down, you can see the whole front of the truck lift up to the point where it was almost taking a lot of weight off the front tyres, so you were losing a bit of your pushing power. And it was also, it was just, yeah, sticking to the ground so much that it wasn't going too well. So yeah, I was pretty happy with my efforts there. I went for a quick trip on, what's it bloody called? Lake Coved. And again, once you're actually looking for places to go and plough, it's you suddenly realise there's not as many as you kind of think, or not as many that are nicely set up for the situation. It was going pretty well along there, but then once you start sort of bumping up to where it's a hill, it just, yeah, it was setting the plough kind of just bumping up as well, and it was just going up and over the rocks. I gave it a few goes, but this little flat section at the bottom was going alright. Again, little mistake, reverse it as quick as you can, kind of bump them all back out the way before they start following you back. And again, got to about the same place. But all that little section around me and to the left a little bit is pretty smooth. Like I said, I ended up doing this a lot longer than I thought I'd be sat there messing around with it. It definitely goes pretty well on, yeah, just flat ice, stuff like that. I did try ploughing that breakable ice, all sort of that I'm driving over now. To be fair, it did work a bit, but because that ice kind of is allowed to sort of glitch through the map, and sometimes not, it's not long before you'll hit a piece where it'll stick kind of out the map in a way that'll just ramp your plough up and over it rather than keep pushing them along. But yeah, like I said, it did actually do it a little bit. And again, this section went pretty well as well, considering there's like a lot of some of them rocks are definitely on the juicy and meaty scale, but had to drop it into high-low. And even considering that, I've left tyre tracks afterwards, so that actually was like deforming the terrain a bit. Not as bad as the beach, so the beach was just a bit too soft. Yeah, I wasn't handling that too well. See, sort of go slow, get a few rocks built up in there. Because as we're looking at it now, the left-hand side of the plough, the right side if you were sat in the driver's seat or something, yeah, that has a tendency to bump up a little bit. That sort of seems to be the first thing that's going to go. I was thinking about it then, but yeah, these rocks are a pretty decent size, so it kind of kept the plough force low. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, it works, it's pretty cool. I'd suggest giving it a go. And that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.